Are you new to Asana? In the next 30 minutes, I'll teach you everything you need to know to get started. I've been using Asana since 2012, and my last Getting Started tutorial has been viewed over 139,000 times, but since then, a few things have changed, so it's time for an update. This video is going to walk you through the basics, and if you want to keep learning, we have hundreds of Asana training videos on this channel. We are also an approved Asana Solutions partner, which means if you'd like to purchase your Asana licenses at the best price, or if you need help with setting up your account or onboarding and training your team, then we have got you covered. Book an introductory call with our team using the link in the description below. But first, what is Asana? If you want to skip this part and get straight to the tutorial, you can use the chapters below. Well, Asana started out as a simple project management tool, and like other tools, it's a tool that helps you to plan what are we doing, who's doing it, and when is it due. But Asana has since evolved to become so much more. It now helps you articulate how do we do that work and why? What's the goal or purpose behind this work, and what are we actually trying to achieve? You can purchase Asana on a per user, per month basis. It is also cheaper if you purchase annually. And if you're just getting started, I recommend the starter plan. It will become obvious when you need to upgrade. We find with most of our clients that as they get more confident with Asana, as they start to use it more and more within their business, you'll want to upgrade to advanced or even enterprise to get more powerful features. And you can click the link in the description to request a quote from Mineco. When you purchase through us, we will be able to support you with Asana, and we will give you a discount on these retail prices. Okay, let's get going. Now, to kick things off, first I'm going to explain the navigation here in Asana and how you find your way around. Now, at the time of recording, Asana is actually in the process of rolling out this shiny new navigation menu or sidebar. If I show you my actual Asana account here at Mineco, you'll see we actually are on the old sidebar at the moment. So you may already have the new sidebar if you've signed up recently. Now on this first work tab, you'll see at the top you've got quick access to things like your home screen, where you can see tasks you have coming up, goals you're working on, projects and people that you are currently working with. You've also got access to your inbox. I'll talk about this a little bit later. This is where you get notified about updates to tasks and comments in Asana. You've also got the My Tasks page. This is a really important screen that I'll talk about later. This is where you can see what you need to do today, tomorrow, this week, and all the work you have that's assigned to you. Further down, we can access our projects and portfolios. This is really where our work lives, and we can go into these projects and view tasks for these different areas of work. On the Plan tab, this is where we can do things like create goals, we can do resource planning and create reports. We're not going to talk about any of that today. We have other videos that you can dive into when you're ready. On the Workflow tab, this is again more powerful features in Asana. It's where you can manage things like project templates, create custom fields, create rules, which is really handy for automating your workflows. You can set up forms and create bundles. Again, we have more videos on these features. And finally, on the Company tab, this is where you can create and manage your teams. Now, we are going to start here because when you get started with Asana, one of the very first decisions you need to make is how should I structure my account? Before we can even create any of these projects, we actually need to decide what teams should we set up and where are those projects going to live. Here's how I would think of teams. If the organizational structure of your company is one where you have departments, maybe you have marketing, operations, finance, then those departments in your company would be your teams in Asana. So if you have a marketing team, you could have a content calendar project in the marketing team, and so people in marketing can see the content calendar. Now, you can still share that project with people in operations. Maybe they also need to see the calendar, but you should think of teams as like the folders that projects live in. And for a larger company, those teams really should be the departments of your business. At my company, because we're a small team of about 13 people, we don't really have departments. So we've kept our team structure really minimal and really simple. We really just have two teams. We have this main Mineco team. This is where we manage our internal projects, things like leadership, finance and accounting tasks, operational tasks. It's where we plan content and manage sales. And then we have a client work team, and this is where we have a smaller project for our smaller clients. We have individual projects for our larger retainer clients and managing our automation work. And so really we just use teams as folders. The distinction being Minaco is our internal work and the client work team is more external client-facing work. Now, my advice when you're just getting started is keep it simple. A big mistake we see a lot of clients make is when they get started with Asana, they create lots and lots of teams because they want to keep certain projects private. You don't need to have a separate team to keep one project private. I'll show you that in a bit. Keep it simple, keep it minimal, and it's going to be a lot easier to navigate and find your work later on. To create a new team, you can go to the Create button and click a new team, or you can click the plus button next to Teams in the sidebar. We're going to give this team a name like Marketing, and I can choose whether to add people to my team now, or I might want to add them later while I'm still building things out. An enterprise feature is you can endorse teams, which is useful if you have lots of teams being created and you want to endorse the teams that are sort of the more official, recommended teams that you want people to join. And finally, you can choose the privacy of this team. So you can either make the team public to the organization, which means everyone in your company can see the team and they can join without permission. You can make the team private, which means nobody can see the team, and you can only be added to the team by an admin who then invites you. Or you can make the team membership by request, which means the team is visible to people in the organization and they can request to join, which then has to be approved by an admin. And once I'm happy, I can create my new team. On this overview tab, this is where you can customize things like the color and add a logo or image to your team. You can add a team description to describe what is the purpose of this team. And this is where you can also start to create or add work, things like projects and portfolios. Along the top, you can view the members of this team and change member permissions. You can view all of the work, like the projects and templates in the team. There's a messages board. This is a bit like a channel in Slack or Microsoft Teams. And so this is where the marketing team could have internal conversations back and forth. There's also a team calendar where you can view tasks from the projects within the team, and a knowledge tab where you can add attachments, you can create internal resources and documents. Once you have your team set up and ready to go, the next, and probably one of the most fun things you'll want to do next, is to build out your first project. Now I'm going to switch back to our demo account, and I find it useful to think about projects in 3 different ways. The first is you can use projects for things like ongoing or evergreen areas of work. So here's an example of one called leadership. I call this evergreen because the project is never finished. This is where I might manage things like tasks related to managing our team, things like invoicing, accounting, and finance. It's just an ongoing, evergreen area of work, and it's a place where I can put tasks related to leadership. The next is you could have a project for a process or workflow that you need to manage. So here's an example called design requests. This project is set up slightly differently. It's more of a Kanban style, and you can move tasks through these stages. So new requests, assigned to designer, in progress, waiting for approval, and done. And you can customize projects like this with fields and rules that help you to automatically update tasks as they move through those stages. And finally, you could think of a project or use projects for things like an actual project that you're working on, maybe a client that you're working with, designing a website, or in this case, a customer retreat. And this is more of a project in the traditional sense where when the project is done, you could complete the project or you could archive it once you've closed out and finished that work. Now, to create your first project, you can click the plus button next to work in the work section of the sidebar, or click the create button and click new project. Now on this screen, you will see some suggestions of either templates or workflows that you've already saved if you've created your own project templates that you'd like to use. Or in these tabs, you'll see some suggested ways you can use Asana for things like creative requests, content planning, operational or productivity work. I actually find it best to just start with a blank project, but you can browse these suggestions if you want to get some ideas of how to set up projects in different ways. There is also an import option. If you have a spreadsheet with a column for things like task names and a column for the dates, maybe you're migrating from another system, you can import that spreadsheet to Asana. But yeah, let's just set up a blank project. And let's pretend I'm an agency and I'm going to be building a website for a client. We're going to be working with Apple, and we're going to say website design. They've decided to outsource their design. Now, when you create a project, you can choose what visibility do you want to give this project. You can either make it visible to everyone in your organization, so everyone's going to be able to see the project, even if they're not an active member of the project, or you can choose to make it private. As I mentioned before, a mistake we see a lot of people make is they create their own separate private team to keep certain projects private. You don't need to do that. You can just make this individual project private, and that way only people I invite will be able to see the work. But we're going to make it public. You can set up the project with AI. If you want to upload a file and provide a prompt for the kind of project you'd like to create, you can get AI to help you. But we're going to do this from scratch. So let's create this. Now on this next screen, you can choose which views would you like to include in your project. Now, if you're not sure what to do, I would just recommend going with the list view. Just start with that, keep it really simple. And what you'll find is that different projects suit different views. I like the list because it's sort of like a spreadsheet where you can see a lot of tasks and a lot of information at once. The board layout works really well if you like that Kanban style of planning. Perhaps you have more of a workflow or process-based project like design requests. Those boards can work really well. You can also create a timeline or Gantt view if you like more of that visual overview to see when tasks are starting and finishing. You can choose to add a dashboard with some useful reporting metrics to your project. There's some other views down here if you want to see your tasks in a calendar, if you want to see team capacity. There's lots of different tabs and views we can add to the project. But we're going to keep it simple. We're just going to start with our overview screen and a list view. And you can actually add new views later. So if you're not sure, don't worry. You can add new views from this drop-down if you want to later on include a timeline or add a workload view. You can. Once you've created your project, the next thing you need to do is decide, how am I going to organize the tasks in this project? And that's where we use sections. So you can create a section here from the drop-down or from this button here, and think of sections either as like the phases or stages of a project, or the different, almost like different subcategories of tasks. So if I actually go to my leadership, you can see I've got sections as categories where I'm just organizing tasks. In design requests, if I look at the list view, our sections are more like the phases or stages of the project. So for this Apple website design, I would have like stage 1, client onboarding. We need to onboard the client, gather some information, do some planning. We could then have stage 2, design and planning. Stage 3 would be maybe like implementation, or let's call it production. And we'd have stage 4, go live and final delivery. So those are my sections, and that's how I'm going to organize the tasks in this project. Next, I would think about what are the major deliverables of this project, and that's where we can use milestones. Milestones are typically major deliverables or important deadlines. So one major deliverable, let's move this to our onboarding section, would be maybe they sign their agreement. Client agreement signed, we need to get that signed first. For design and planning, we might have a milestone for client approved website design. Actually, I'm going to right click on that and I can convert that to a milestone. In the production section, I might have milestones for things like all pages designed and ready. Let's right click and convert to milestone. We might have another one for e-commerce testing complete. We want to test to make sure people can purchase through the website. That's a milestone. And in the stage 4 section, we might have a milestone for website live. And we will convert that to a milestone. And we can break down our work further by creating tasks, either by clicking Add Task right here, or you can add a task from the drop down at the top. So before we get the agreement signed, we might need to have an onboarding meeting. We need to get that. We need to request client assets, design assets, and brand guidelines. These are sort of the smaller tasks that you need to do to progress the work forward. Okay, I've fast forwarded in time now. You can see I've built out and set up some additional tasks for this project. And if I click on one of these, I can open up the task panel on the right-hand side, and this is where I can provide a lot more detail. Firstly, in the description here, I can provide some instruction around how do we actually complete this task? What do we need to do? So once we receive the brand assets, we need to create a new Google Drive folder and share with, and this is where if you type the @ symbol, you can mention people on your team and you can involve them in the task. That's actually going to add Warwick as a collaborator down here. You can also create subtasks for these smaller steps you need to do. So we need to get their logo pack, brand colors, and brand guidelines. And each of these subtasks could be, if I want to, assigned to different people. And this is where you can get really specific on who is doing what. As I said at the beginning, Asana is a tool that helps you to plan and see what are we doing. So like the task or the subtasks here, that's the what. Who's doing it? So I could assign this parent task to myself, but maybe these subtasks need to be done by other people. So who's doing what? Let's assign that to Warwick. And when is it due? So we need these brand assets and guidelines by the end of next week. Now, an important distinction, by the way, is on tasks like this, you can either apply a singular due date or a date range. So this is something we're working on between this date range. However, with milestones, by their nature, milestones represent a point in time. So you'll notice that with your milestones, you can only put a due date on. You cannot apply a date range because a milestone is a deadline. And that's a key differentiator there. So what are we doing? Who's doing it? When is it due is the dates. How do we do it? That's really where you can provide the instructions in the description. You can also upload attachments. If you click the paperclip, you can upload files from your computer, Google Drive, OneDrive, or SharePoint. And that way, the person who's working on this task can read the description, the brief. They have the attachments and documents they need all in one place so that they know how they actually can complete their work. And finally, down the bottom here, we can actually have a conversation inside this task. So if I'm talking about this, if I'm following up with somebody, if I'm wanting feedback on something, we can comment on our tasks. And each of these tasks has its own area for comments. So each task is almost like its own separate conversation thread, a bit like an email thread. And actually, one more thing I'll show you here, this is always well received when we show people, is dependencies. So requesting our client design assets and guidelines, this is actually something we can only do once we finish the onboarding meeting. So I'm going to create a dependency, and if I search for the name of the task, onboarding meeting, you can see it's in the Apple website design project. I've now created a dependency. So this task is blocked by, I could change it to blocking if I wanted to, but it's blocked by the onboarding meeting. If I click on that task, I can see the reverse relationship. So the onboarding meeting is blocking the request client design assets. This is great because when you have multiple people working on two different tasks, let's say Warwick is working on this one, he can clearly see that his task is blocking this one, and he is going to hold me up if he doesn't get his done. So actually, Asana is a great tool for improving and increasing accountability between teammates. Okay, I've fast forwarded in time again. I've assigned my tasks to people on my team. I've got dates and date ranges on my tasks, and I've added some more dependencies. Now, if I add a timeline view, I can now create an instant visual representation of my tasks. I can see when tasks start and finish. I can see my milestones, these green lines down the screen, and I can even see my dependent relationships. And what's really cool is if I push back one of these tasks, let's say there's a delay, I can have that automatically shift and update those dependent tasks. So this is just a very convenient way you can switch between different views depending on how you like to visualize your work in Asana. I find as a project manager, this timeline works quite well, but the list is more useful if you want to dig into the details. Now, there's a couple more things I want to show you related to building your project. First, if you go to the Overview tab here, this is where you can get a bit of a summary of the project and see key information. You can input a project description, so you can just describe what is the project about, what's the goal of the project. You can see the project members. This is where you can add people to the project. So you'll notice actually, even though in my tasks, I have tasks assigned to Warwick and Lindsay, those tasks will now appear on their task lists. They're not actually members of this project. If I add them as a member, let's say I add Warwick and let's add Lindsay, they will now get additional updates related to this project. I can choose whether I want to make them admins so they can make changes to all of the tasks and project settings. I can allow them to just edit tasks and certain settings. I can give them comment access if I only want them to comment on tasks, or I could just make them a viewer if I don't want them editing or commenting on anything. I can choose whether I want to notify them when new tasks are added to the project, and so let's send that invite. Now, once I add them as a member to the project, they will get additional notifications in their inbox. First is they'll get notified when I update the status of the project, which I'll do in a sec. If I post a message inside the project, and again, I can choose whether to notify them about any new tasks being added. So that's why you do want to add people as actual project members as well as assigning them tasks. So now, as the project manager, when I update the status of the project over here, I can determine if the project is on track, at risk, or off track. So let's just say we're on track now. I can say the project is going well. We're going to be done in time for Christmas. Yay. I can also bring in some of these reports on the right-hand side if I want to show the incomplete tasks that are coming up for certain people on the team. I can share my status update, and now those project members, they will get a notification in their inbox of the status that I have posted. Further down on the overview page, this is where you can see the goals and portfolios that the project is connected to. We're not going to go into those more advanced features in this video. You can also link key resources like files, or you can create a more detailed project brief. And you can see already down here an overview of the milestones that I've created. Now that I've built my project, as a team, it's now up to each of us individually to keep our tasks up to date. So as I'm working on a task, if I have questions for somebody, maybe I need help with my task, I can post my comments down here. So I could say, at Warwick, can you please check the designs I've completed? I can mention him, and now when Warwick responds, his comment will show up on here, and we can keep our conversation linked with the actual work that we're doing. I'm not having to switch to email or Slack. We're able to keep the work moving forwards right here in Asana. When I finish my work, I can mark this milestone as complete, and I get a lovely celebration on the page. By the way, it is the responsibility of the assignee to complete their task. We see people do this weird thing sometimes where the assignee assigns the task back to the person that gave them the task, and they expect them to then be the one to complete it. Don't do that. That's silly. If you want to use Asana properly, the assignee who did the work should be the one to complete the task. Of course, if you need to, you or the person that assigned it to you can actually reopen the task at any time if you still think there's work to do. Okay, I think that's enough now for the project that we've built and creating tasks. There's plenty to get going with there. But before you do, there are 2 daily habits or best practices that you absolutely must follow when you start using Asana. The first is you need to be working from and checking this My Tasks page. As I said earlier, this My Tasks page, this is where you can see all the tasks assigned to you that have your name on it. So you can see I've got tasks in my Apple website design project and other various projects that I'm working on. So this is just a one screen that I can look at rather than me having to click through each individual project to find my work. Now, I've organized my tasks with these sections. I've got recently assigned work that comes in here. I can have a look at that work and then I can sort them into my other sections. So I've got a today section where I can see what I need to do that's due today. You can see those dates. I've got an upcoming section where I can see tasks that are coming up in the next 7 days. It's good to be aware of that. And then I have a later section down here where I can see tasks that are due more than a week or even multiple months away. And so I will triage from recently assigned. This will go into upcoming. In fact, these will all go into my actually later section. And then I've actually got some rules set up here to move those tasks up as they become due. We've done team trainings, and we find some people prefer to see their tasks not using sections, but automatically organized by project. If you just want to see the projects and tasks that you're working on, or you may just want to see everything sorted by date. You can put it into date order. I find that view a little bit too busy. I like to use the sections. There is also a calendar view. If you click on calendar, you can view your tasks on a monthly calendar like this, or in the options, you can change to a weekly layout. And so feel free to play around with the different views and options to find what works for you. My key tip here, though, is check your My Tasks every day. It's the best way to keep on top of what you have to do today and what you have coming up in the near future. My second daily habit and important best practice is check your inbox throughout the day. This is my demo account. There's nothing in my inbox, but if I go to my actual live Asana account, there should be some updates. This is where you get updated about any tasks that you're a collaborator on. So if you are a collaborator down here, you can see this is actually a task that Warwick is working on, but because I'm a collaborator down at the bottom, I have been notified about this comment. And so now I can like that, click the like emoji, or I can respond here from my inbox if I need to. You get updated about things like messages. So we've just posted a message in our team here, and people have reacted to that, which is nice. You can see things like tasks being completed. So I can see Kayla has marked that as done, and I can respond with an appreciation, or I can comment if I need to. I can reopen the task if I need to. The important habit or best practice with this inbox, number one, is make sure you're checking it at least a couple of times a day, if not more, as you start to use Asana more and more. And once you've dealt with a notification, like this one here from Warwick, I've responded to that now, I need to archive that notification. That moves it out of my inbox here, and it puts it into this archive section. That just means that this activity tab is really only for the new things that I haven't seen or haven't responded to yet. My goal is to actually respond to everything or acknowledge everything, read everything, and then once I'm done, I can have an empty inbox like this, and I know that I'm up to date and I'm all caught up. And then when new updates or new comments come in, those will be very obvious on the activity tab. Okay, where to from here? Well, at Mineco, we've worked with hundreds of different businesses across the world, and we find it's very common for a new team to start by using Asana for one particular use case or purpose. And as your confidence grows, and once you've proven value and you can see how Asana can really help you, we then find it's very common for businesses to use Asana more and more in other areas of the business. An interesting study was done in early 2025 that found that the average knowledge worker wastes about 12 hours a week just searching for and finding information and resources so they can do their work. At Mineco, we run our entire business in Asana. In fact, there isn't a thing that we're doing that can't be identified as either a task or a project in our Asana. It's also how we communicate as a team. We don't use email, we don't use chat apps like Slack or Microsoft Teams. Instead, we comment and we get feedback and ask questions through the comments in Asana. This is how we're able to move our work forwards much more efficiently. And if you want to see what a full deployment and a high level of usage of Asana looks like, check out our related video up here where I actually gave a behind the scenes tour of how we've structured our account at Mineco and how we use Asana on a daily basis. And if you want to take your training to the next level, we've put together a playlist of our 10 most useful Asana training videos that's going to teach you things like how to create project or task templates, how to customize projects, create goals in Asana, and even how to manage your team's workload and capacity. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, give it a like. It's the best way to support this channel. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.